All right, so another CDL B side, and right now I'm on the job. Right now it is like 17 degrees outside, 18. Yesterday it was 12. Today it's like 17 or 18. It's cold. I not much I can say about that is other than it's cold. I know there's probably some guy from like the northernmost part of Canada. He's going to tell me that 17 degrees is nothing because where he's from, it's negative 70. But yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm cold. All right. It's cold out here. So in the last video, I talked about my experience of going through CDL school and getting my CDL B. And this one, I'm going to talk about the job market because once again, the same way I didn't really know much about the trucking industry and getting my CDL, I didn't know much about the trucking industry and I didn't know much about the job market. And I'm sorry this video is a little dark, but I work at night, so most of my videos are probably going to be at night. But let's get into it. So I passed, graduated from CDL school. I'm waiting for my CDL, the physical CDL license to come in the mail. Because in Pennsylvania, that's what you do. You got to wait for it to come in the mail. I'm not sure how it is in other states, but in PA, that's what you have to wait for. But while I'm waiting, I am online applying for a lot of other jobs. Well, a lot of CDL B jobs. I kind of had this strategy going in that I would try out a lot of different jobs because once again, I really didn't know anything about the industry, and therefore I wasn't sure what type of driving I wanted to do or what type of truck I wanted to drive. Because when you have a CDL B, there's a lot of different types of trucks that you can drive with that license. When you have a CDL A, you can drive tractor trailer and you pretty much drive everything. When you have a CDL B, the only thing you can't drive is tractor trailer or anything with like a trailer. So having to decide, what type of truck I wanted to drive, you also got to make the choice of what type of company you want to work for and what that company does. So when I first get online and I'm applying for these jobs, I'm on like Indeed and Monster and ZipRecruiter. I'm applying for jobs that are like $25, $30 an hour. And the reason why is because I was watching a lot of media, reading a lot of news, and they were all saying pretty much the same thing, that, the world needs, truck drivers. The world needs you. It needs the truck drivers. And so I'm online applying for $25 an hour to $30 an hour starting pay jobs, thinking that because I have my CDL license, I am in high demand in the job market. I'm thinking, I'm going to be the best thing since sliced bread to these companies. They're going to be frothing at the mouth. I'm thinking I'm a first round draft pick. Well, that wasn't the case. Those $25 to $30 an hour jobs weren't really calling me back. And the ones that did call me back all pretty much told me the same thing. You need 1 year of experience. So, yeah, I got hit with that dose of reality pretty quick. So I had to start lowering my expectations of how much money I was going to be making when I got the CDL and I got my license. So I started applying for a lot of jobs that said, no experience needed, will train, things like that. And on that journey in the job market, I ended up working for 3 companies, driving 3 different types of trucks, because I was more of doing a like a trial type thing, trying out different trucks, trying out the different jobs that are in this CDLB side of the trucking industry. So I ended up driving, first truck I drove was a box truck for it was food delivery, delivering food to restaurants. And the way they did with me was I went in for an interview. And here's the other thing, right? All right. So if you are going from let's say like me, I came from like the security field of work, right? So when you go for that job interview in security, you're gonna wear a suit, a tie, nice shoes, stuff like that. I did not know that when you were going for a trucking job, you did not have to wear a suit and a tie and nice shoes. I mean, it's nice to do, but it's actually unnecessary. And some of those jobs may may require you to do a road test, at which they want to see if you can even drive in the first place. So luckily for me, the box truck company didn't require a road test. And they did a thing where they'll let you go out for a day and they'll pay you for that day, but they'll let you try it out for a day and then you'll get back to them saying whether or not you want to do the job. So I agreed to do the one day. So I go out with this other guy, he's training me. He mainly drove during the first half of this day. And the problem with that job wasn't necessarily the job itself, but the problem with that job was more on me, because I had a different expectation of what that job entailed. So one of the things they did was they took me around the warehouse. This warehouse was full of food. It was tons and tons of food. And then they go to like this, open up this refrigerator door. You go inside this refrigerator. It's like a second warehouse inside the warehouse in this fridge. Fridge is huge, full of food. And the guy explained it to me like, yeah, they put everything on pallets and the warehouse workers load up the truck. So all you have to do is just come in, get your orders, and then bam, you can go ahead and hit the road and start making your deliveries. I thought the job was something like you go to the restaurant, you take the pallet off the truck. You take the pallet up to the restaurant door, knock on the door, guy comes out, hey, here's your order. He checks the order and boom, you ride off. It was not like that. Yeah, you take the pallet off the truck, but then you got to break down the pallet and you got to put all the food on like hand trucks, or what they call them, dollies or hand trucks or whatever. And then you rolling in all these dollies into the restaurant. Sometimes you got to put the food inside the restaurant's fridge. Sometimes you drop it off. You drop it wherever inside the kitchen they want it dropped off at, and then they do their checks and things like that. So it was a lot of back and forth to the truck. And restaurants order food in bulk, so all of it was heavy. And I was just not physically prepared for that part of the job. Because another thing that I quickly realized is a lot of CDL B jobs aren't just driving. There's a driving part to them, and then there's a labor part to them. So when you go out there and you're looking for a job, you got to look at both of those aspects of whether or not you're going to like driving whatever type of truck that company has, and also whether or not you're going to like the type of labor that is required in that job. So food truck did not work out for me because I just was not physically prepared for that whatsoever. Like I said in the first video, I worked for Amazon and I ended up injuring my knee. So when I was doing this food truck delivery job, it just made things with my knee 10 times worse. And because of that, because of what my experience with that job, I left that job and I kind of took that experience to the next job. So when I went to the next job, which was roll off for a trash company, I kind of went in there with no expectations, no assumptions of what the job was. I kind of just walked in and was like, all right, whatever they throw at me, that's what the job is. Well, working roll-off for a trash company, I quickly find out that I don't like working with trash. I didn't mind driving the roll-off truck and, the things that it entailed, but trash is disgusting. I'm sorry. It was nasty. I remember because when you do roll-off is picking up dumpsters. For any of you guys who don't know what roll-off is, you're picking up dumpsters. So one of the first dumpsters we picked off was for this urinalysis company. I think it was DeVita or something like that. And it was a dumpster full of urine bottles. It still had urine in them. So when they go to lift the dumpster up on a truck, like all this liquid urine, I'm guessing it all was all this urine comes like dripping out of the dumpster. It was absolutely disgusting. So I quickly found out that trash wasn't for me. Another thing about that job, well, I'm gonna go back to the food truck in a second here, but another thing about that job was the pay. They paid $160 a day. So if you're new and you don't really know much about the trucking industry, $160 a day sounds great until you do the math. And then you realize that if you work past 8 hours, you're not really making much money past 8 hours. Because at 160 over 8 hours, that's like $20 an hour. The amount of work that these people would give you was more than 8 hours worth of work. So therefore, you weren't making that $20 an hour. And it was one of those jobs where you read the job description and they say like, oh yeah, you can make up to, $50,000 or something like that. They wouldn't tell you it was 160 a day in the job description. You found it out kind of like when you got there. But they would write inside their job description, you can make up to $50,000 because they're talking about doing overtime and things like that. But the base pay was $160 a day. They paid by the day. So I didn't like that pay structure. It's not a pay structure that I was used to. And I didn't like working with trash. So that was a no-go for me. The box truck, the food delivery, the first truck I was talking about, that paid $16 an hour. And I didn't like that it paid $16 an hour because it required you to have a CDL license. And I'm like, I paid $3,200 to get my CDL B, and now I'm working a job only making $16 an hour. Like, I could have stayed and kept doing security if I only wanted to make $16 an hour. So that was a no-go for me. And they told me that the reason why it paid $16 an hour was because it was a union job and it was something with the union contract. So the next job I did was concrete mixer. And concrete mixer wasn't bad. I actually quite enjoyed it. I didn't like the hours, but I did enjoy driving the truck and doing that job. But while I enjoyed driving the truck, it took me a while to really get used to the truck, because for those of you who don't know, when you're driving a concrete mixer, you're driving down the center. So if you're in your car, you mainly all cars, well, pretty much every car in America, you're driving to the left. Like, your steering wheel and everything is on your left, is on the left side. When you're in a concrete mixer, everything is right down the middle. So where your center console is where your steering wheel and your seat would be. Like where your center console, like your radio and stuff is at, that's where your steering wheel and your seat would be. So it took me a while to get used to driving a concrete mixer, because it was a very awkward to have to drive that way. And it had its own bit of labor to it as well. It wasn't as laborious as the box truck or the roll-off truck, but its labor was more of washing the truck off. You had to climb up a ladder to like the top of the chute and wash the concrete and stuff off, climbing up and down the ladder a couple times, making sure the truck is cleaned off of all the concrete, because you don't want the concrete to dry and, start, caking up on different parts of the truck. So, but once again, that was a different type of pay structure. That was a $15 an hour while you were training, and then when you got out of training, it was $23 an hour. And you pretty much had like no real clue of when you were going to get out of training. And like I said, it was a different pay structure for me, because I was used to going to a job. They say, hey, we pay $15 an hour. And the day one that you start throughout your training and, working there, you are making $15 an hour. And every year you got a raise. So with this job, it was $15 an hour training. And then after your training was over, they bumped you up to $23 an hour. Now, like I said before about the hours there, I didn't like the hours, because it was a very weird situation with this company, where they would text you the day before what time you were going to be working the next day. All right, let me try to explain this. So like today is Wednesday, and around between 5 and 7 at night, I would get a text message from this company saying what time I would start Thursday. And I really did not like that, because then you got to figure out how to structure your life around that type of work schedule. So, like, if me and the wife wanted to go out to dinner or something like that, dinner and a movie or something like that, around between like 5 and 7 o'clock, I might get a text message saying, hey, you got to be in at like 3:30 in the morning or 4:30 in the morning. And so now I might have to, cancel some plans or whatever I made that night, because now I got to come in early, because also this job was like an hour away from where I lived. So if I had to come in at 4 a.m., that means I got to get up at 2 a.m., hit the road at 3 a.m. and then to make it to work by 4 a.m. So I didn't really feel as though I was going to have a life with that type of schedule. So those are the 3 trucks I drove before I started working for the state. Now I drive a dump truck, and I absolutely love driving a dump truck. It's pretty simple. Even though, you talk to a couple old timers, they make it seem like it's rocket science. It's not. It's actually a really simple truck to drive. Not much to it. But what I would tell people, you guys watching, that when you get your CDL for the first time, you get your CDL B for the first time, you should try out different jobs and try out driving different trucks. Get some experience behind the wheel and on different types of trucks. Even though I didn't stick with, those 3 jobs, I did learn a lot from those 3 jobs. The people who were training me had years of experience, so they gave me a lot of advice and a lot of tips on driving trucks. And because they could tell that I knew nothing about driving trucks, they could tell by the way I drove and the questions that I was asking that, I was brand new and I knew nothing about driving trucks. So the experience with those 3 companies wasn't all bad. And like I said, I took away a lot of skills and a lot of tips that actually helped me on the road now at this job. So I wouldn't necessarily take the first job that calls you. I would try out the first job that calls you, but I would still be applying and keeping my options open, and trying out different trucks, trying to figure out what it is, what type of truck I would want to drive. Because when you get a CDLB, it's more of a career move where you're working for a company and you're not really jumping around from company to company like that. You have a plan of, I'm going to work for a company and I might be doing this for like 15, 20, or like 30 years. So, get out there on the road, and try out different trucks, try out different companies. It's like I said, each job is going to have its own version of labor to it. Each job has its own, labor part to it. So be prepared for that. And that's it. That's pretty much all the advice I can give you, because I'm still new at this. I've had my license for like 11 months now. So when I make these videos and I'm giving you my experiences so far, you're getting a fresh take of, getting your CDL and trying to get out there on the road and, get out there in the job market. So I'll be making some more videos for you guys. Keep you guys up to date on my journey. And that's it. So like and subscribe, and till next time.